It's time to get a bit creative with my remake of LEGO Loco and build the painter and post office. In the game, instead of bringing up the inspector when you right click these buildings, you instead enter their rooms and can design and send off postcards using a whole bunch of LEGO Clipart. It was the 90s after all. So to start, let's take a look at the original and everything it has to offer. By inspecting the painter's building, you're taken to this factory looking scene, with a happy guy working the lever, a blank canvas, and a whole bunch of artwork to choose from. On the left, you can cycle through the different categories with things like minifigs, cars, plants, flags, all sorts really. There's even some really cursed looking figures for, I assume, the developers. You can scroll through the conveyor belt for different parts and simply click and place them onto the canvas. There's no layering here, each new part goes on top of everything else, so make sure you place it down in order. And finally, at the top, there are 3 color wheels, which change the red, yellow, and blue values in the background color. This will get annoying later on, so look forward to that. As well as these wheels, there's also preset colors to choose from on the side, which set the background accordingly. Once you've designed the postcard, you can flip it over, write a little note, and select who it's going to. And then finally, drag it into the post box or album book. The book saves your creations for display, and sending them off in the post box will make the letter appear in the post office. By passing the post office through the train that has a mail cart attached, we'll collect the mail and send it off on its journey. Once a train is then passed through the multiplayer tunnel, it'll either arrive at the player you sent it to, or will return a postcard from one of the many NPCs to choose from. So overall, it's a rather simple creation tool, but it was such a big part of this game when I was a kid, so let's get it into my remake. First things first, let's take a look at all of the sprites that make up these menus. I created a new parent object on the canvas for these building screens, and started with the post office. The background for this is very easy because it's literally a single image with everything in place. However, this is where the 90s issues come up again. This screen is one sprite, but has all of the interactable elements already in place, which means that to animate the parts like the shutter or bell, they simply overlapped a new image on top, covering up everything around it. And because there's no transparency to these sprites, they all have cutouts of the background as well. So I added some buttons to the UI that use the sprite swap interaction, and had to perfectly line them up to the background with the anchors, making sure that they scale together and don't get out of line if you resize the window. In this screen, there's actually quite a lot of interactions. There's the album that will be used to open up the postcard book when I get around to making that. There's a bell that literally just makes a ding noise. Clicking on this pot of pencils takes you to the painter screen. The X on the door closes the menu. If you press the postmaster's face, he laughs in a really unsettling way. The shutter behind has a few different frames for how many postcards are waiting to go out, and the bin can be used to delete any postcards that you receive. All of these are currently sprite swap buttons that don't actually do anything when you click them, but I'll get all of the functionality in place after I've set up the 2 buildings. And just like that, there's the post office ready to go. Now it's time to look at the painter, which is a lot more complicated. So first of all, the background is actually made up of 4 images that line up with each other perfectly. No idea why this one is done this way, but still. What is nice about this though, is that the fact that most of the buttons on this screen aren't baked into the background, so their position doesn't have to be exact to the pixel, and won't have any weird edges to them. So I added the close and attach buttons, these 3 on the right, the 16 different categories on the left using layout groups, color presets, the wheels at the top, the post box, the guy pulling the lever, and this random blue button, which again plays weird laughs when pressed. The final thing to set up was the conveyor belt, which needed a nice way to animate the scrolling look. So instead of using the sprite import settings, I changed the texture to default and made sure that the wrap mode was set to repeating. Then on the conveyor object, instead of using an image component, it uses a raw image, which uses the texture, and by animating the x-axis on the UV rect, it gives the illusion that this is scrolling along. So if I play the animation here, you can see that it looks perfect. Now that the visuals are basically done, it's time to get some of the functions in place. The first thing I hooked up was the conveyor belt moving when you hit the left and right buttons, but obviously no items are coming out yet, it's just the background visual. The items, I'll get to those. I set up these wheels at the top, but these have both a left and right click function to raise and lower the color, which means that the normal button component won't actually work for this. Lucky for me, this is a well documented issue that others have had, and by creating a new class that extends from the base selectable and adding in left and right click events as well as hold functions, I can get a UI button to have these extra features pretty quickly. So now, left clicking on the button fires one event and right clicking fires another. This goes to the color wheel script that just stores a number between 0 and 1 and raises or lowers it depending on the button pressed. With that all in place, every time the color wheel is updated, it'll update the postcard's background color, and this is where an issue came in that I spoke about earlier. The painter's 3 wheels are for red, yellow and blue, which is pretty normal for painting, except this isn't paint that I'm mixing, it's numbers. And to convert RYB to RGB is apparently some crazy mathematical thing with trilinear interpolation and all sorts. It's actually a complete mess, so I need a nice way to mix these up. I don't know the exact formula they used in the original, but I just basically added them together and called it a day. I'll look into proper color theory and how it actually makes sense, but for now you can twist these wheels and make it more red, more yellow, or more blue. I also added the presets on the left by simply color picking the sprites and setting the background to that color, which was a whole lot easier. Now for the clip art. One of the issues I had with the clip art sprites yet again is the fact that the files didn't support transparency, as these images are just 8-bit bitmaps, so I needed to change that into something more usable and modern. But I didn't really fancy going through with opening up 723 files into paint.net, deleting the background and saving them in a new format, so instead I wrote a simple Python script to do that all for me. All it does is open up any bitmap it finds, and using the pillow library, detects the pink color, replaces it with a transparent pixel, and saves it like new. I probably could have done this for the entire game before I even started, but oh well. I ran the script, it somehow worked perfectly, and now I can go ahead and set them all up in game. I set their import settings to the usual, and now it's time to sort them all into their respective categories. So there are 16 categories of art here, broken down into 2 rows. For each category, there's a few pages of items, some have way more than others, and one thing that makes it a little more complicated is the fact that there's not a set amount of sprites per page. So sometimes there's 5, 6, or 7, depending on the size of them. So I can't just add them all to a list and iterate through easily. Instead, what I've done is set up a scriptable object for each category, and then also a struct to store a list of sprites. The scriptable object contains a list of structs and iterates through that way. So then it was just a case of setting up every category with every sprite for 723 sprites. This took me ages. With all of that out of the way, I created a clip art controller that loads the current category when you press the buttons on the left and scrolls through the pages with the arrows at the bottom. If the page index is 0, the left arrow gets disabled, and if it's on the last page, the right arrow is disabled. For the currently loaded clip art, I created a parent object with a horizontal sorting group to evenly space them and update each sprite for the artwork. To make it slide in smoothly, I created a second parent object for the outgoing sprites and scrolled the 2 left or right depending on the direction. I used a mask component to only show the images when it's inside the conveyor belt area, and that looks amazing. Now it's time to create some works of art. Now that I've got all of the items coming in on the conveyor belt, I set up a new object that works in a similar way to the ghost building object, where you can select the sprite to use and hover over the postcard area. From here, I needed a way to combine all of these images, and I basically thought I could do one of 2 things. The first was to create a texture that starts blank, and then it simply adds the sprite to that texture every time you place one down, overwriting any pixels. That would work perfectly for this simple maker, except then I wouldn't be able to erase items like how it does in the original. So instead, I went for an even easier approach. It simply adds a new image as a child of the postcard, and when clicked on with the eraser, it would delete it again. This allows for the same layering as before, but with that extra feature. Once the postcard is finished, it then uses that original plan of combining it all into a single image by saving the postcard area to a texture. That's then stored and displayed on the postcard itself and looks pretty cool, just like it does in the original. So now, with all this in place, let's make our first postcard. We're going to start here with a lovely cool sky and layer the morning grass down at the bottom. If we grab some fluffy little clouds there and layer them in, that looks brilliant. Now we need a happy little tree to stand proudly over the landscape. Amazing. And finally, a skeleton comes along carrying his favorite items, a lolly and some dynamite. There we go. I'll go ahead and save that to my files. And there we have it. That's going straight on the fridge. And there we have it, the painter in action. Still a few things to iron out and work on, but I'll make sure to get all that stuff sorted off screen and update you later down the line. But let's have a look at some of the other bits I have worked on since the last devlog. One of the little features that I added in this update was the ability to click on buildings and see their animations play. There's a whole bunch of these in the game, but up until this point, I've only had the factory one working and the fountain made up. But there's now so many to see in game, and I've even added some of the secret animations too, like Nessie poking out of the pond and the volcano finally erupting. This is another little change to add to the list of fluff that really brings the whole game together, and it was super easy to implement, so that's nice too. Another little feature is the ability to swap between the seasonal sprites in-game. When the game detects a specific date or holiday, some of the sprites in the game update to match that time, like the Halloween decorations or the Christmas trees. There's only a few of these in-game and some barely change anything, so this was very easy to implement. What I did was added a new enum in the game controller that checks on startup for a date range and changes the event if so. I set up some new scriptable objects for seasonal sprites that update using this value, and that was basically it. So now, if the system is set to the 31st of October, for example, or I just go into the inspector and change it to Halloween, all of the pumpkins and skeletons come out. And the same goes for Easter and Christmas. A very easy feature to add, but a memorable one nonetheless. There's quite a lot of these little details still missing in the game, but I think that'll be the topic of the next devlog. But for now, it's time for everyone's favourite competition, Subscriber Wars. So here we go in the arena, plenty of competitors looking to be the last one standing. We've got the rain pouring, so let's get this started. Already plenty of chaos here. We've got a lot of fighting near the bridge with Tom Proudfoot coming out on top. There's a battle upstream going on as Random Person is taken out by Clayton Belcher. The competitors are really thinning as they move towards the middle. Nacero and Cockep looking to control this area. Final few now as they come together, and it looks like Caleb Tyink has the health advantage over Relaxing Sounds, and there it is. Caleb Tyink is the winner. Well done to you. And that's going to do it for today. This series has been so fun to make. All of the support from you lot is amazing, both on these devlogs and the shorts. My goal for this year was to hit 3k subs on this channel, and I've absolutely cleared that, which is pretty mad. I'm glad you're enjoying the content and leaving me some nice comments. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date and chuck your name into the arena for Subscriber Wars. Check out my Patreon for some extra updates on the project, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.